welcome everyone to the Men's Heart Online Congress. And today's speaker is Ian Wilkes. And Ian is a transformational coach and mentor, as well as a yoga and meditation teacher, breathwork and men's work facilitator. And through his own journey, Ian has developed his own transformational path, combining teachings from different lineages with his own experiences. And through that, he is able to kind of help people on their journey towards more peace, freedom, and a healthy life. And yeah, he's doing that with online courses and one-on-one sessions, and also long-time mentorships, as well as in-person retreats in North and South America and in Europe. Yeah. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Felix. Such an honor to be here, brother. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, brother. Yes.
So, Ian, to begin, maybe I would like to start with a kind of welcoming practice to bring us here and really get also the listeners to center and kind of get into the feeling. Yeah.
Good. Beautiful. So yeah, to start an opening practice, let's all just come into a comfortable seated position. But let's bring the back straight. If your feet are on the floor, bring your feet flat against the floor, bring your knees into a 90-degree angle. If you're sitting on a chair, sitting on the floor, you can come into a cross-legged position, but just the most important part is just to keep the back straight. You can gently bring the palms of the hands on tops of the knees, straighten the spine. Good. Open the chest and kind of imagine as if there would be like a hook on the top of your head, pulling you up towards the sky, and tuck the chin in a little bit. Just to start to bring some integrity and structure into the posture of your body. Sitting, the sense of deep ease, yet at the same time with a sense of verticality. Relax the muscles of the face, relax the shoulders away from the ears, release any unnecessary tension, and bring your awareness into your heart. Just starting to cultivate a felt sense of sacredness, of depth, of intimacy with ourselves, sense of love. A sense of love being at the core of our being. The heart is in the center of the body. Representation of love, and just remembering that. Despite all the obstacles, despite all the challenges that we experience, love is at the center of my body and my entire being, the heart. We acknowledge that centeredness of the heart, but we also acknowledge any felt sensations arising in the heart, any emotions, anything that's there, and just allowing ourselves to be present for those, a sense of welcoming all that we're feeling. And also feeling in this moment, why am I here? Why am I tuning into this talk? Why am I here watching this, listening to this? What's my intention? Really feeling that in the heart. My deepest why. Keeping that awareness to the heart. We'll take 3 deep breaths into that space. So we'll exhale all the air to the lungs. Take a deep breath in. Long breath out, grounding ourselves into the earth, becoming aware of the earth below us as we exhale. Good. Deep inhalation in, filling our entire front side of our body with air, with light, energy. Exhaling, relaxing ourselves down into the earth. Sense of relaxing and grounding. And one last time, deep inhalation in, fully filling the body with air, the belly, the chest, the clavicle, the entire front side of the body. Deep exhalation, letting go of thoughts, cares, worries, unnecessary thoughts, grounding our energy into the earth. Good. Coming back to the normal breath and just resting as a moment of stillness, allowing everything to be exactly as it is. No need for anything to change. Keeping the eyes closed, we slowly bring the palms of the hands together in front of the heart center, gesture of honor and gratitude. Honor and gratitude for our heart, for all that it holds. Honor and gratitude for ourselves. Honor and gratitude for this sacred space and what is about to be spoken and shared in this space. Honoring it and treating it as sacred. Taking a deep bow towards ourselves, towards the earth, towards all that supports us, towards all that helps us, towards all that nourishes us. Deep sense of honor and reverence to life. You can slowly rise back up. Gently open the eyes, maintaining that presence. And slowly releasing the hands down by the side. Thank you for having me, Felix. Thank you again, brother.
Thank you, Ian. Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah, just the right thing.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. So the whole topic of this Congress is for men, particularly, how to feel your emotions again, and through that also connect with your purpose. And yeah, I feel like what you just did is already part of it for sure. But I just want to start kind of just from the beginning for whoever might tune in, who has never kind of gotten into anything like that before. Just the basic thing, what are emotions from your point of view?
What are emotions? Wow, it's a really good question. Yeah, beyond any kind of psychological or textbook definition, just feeling into what it is for me now. Yeah, I would say emotions are like codes that write the beauty of this life, is the way I would describe it. They're like energetic phenomenons that arise, that inform us of the path towards ourselves. And yeah, an emotion is like a felt sense of helping us to understand what is true for us in the present moment. Felt sense, a mysterious calling that arises in the heart that helps us to remember who we are in one way or another, whether that's sadness, joy, anger. And then emotion, what comes up for me in this moment is really like a teacher. Emotions teach us how to love. Emotions teach us how to embrace. Like the emotion of love itself is that embrace. But emotions like anger and like sadness or anxiety, that maybe we feel some aversion towards, we start to come onto the path of, whatever it means for us, the spiritual path or the path of personal development. And what these emotions are showing us is they're teaching us how to embrace, so really the more difficult emotions, or the emotions that are hard for us to handle, are the ones that are teaching us the most about surrender and about love more than anything else. Because they are hard to embrace, when we put an emotion of resentment or of aversion on top of an emotion that is unpleasant, we can feel the compounded sense of closure in our being. And this is because this is what we were taught. This is what we were taught to do. Hide your emotions, don't show them. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be upset. This constant belief that's plugged into our system, I should be happy, I should be fine, I have everything I need. All these things. But what so many of us are missing, and what our society is missing, is that connection to the heart and that connection to love. We forgot how to love the dark corners of ourselves and how to embrace those. And so when we come from generations and generations of hiding, of covering, of deep suffering, of not being honest, of not being true in that way to how we're feeling, and being accepted and embraced and loved in that within ourselves and also on the outside, we start to become like these hard shells, these robots. And so now when we come into this work, for example, into men's work, for example, we start to practice, what does it mean to embrace? What does it mean to embrace? And we start to learn from our emotions how to do that, how to embrace, by embracing each other in that, in brotherhood, for example, by embracing each other in our relationships. And another piece there, I'm also a couples intimacy coach. So also embracing that in relationship and how to cultivate that healing and openness in the connection between partners, not just speaking about man and women, but in partnership. And what that means. And so we start to relearn, we start to learn how to love. So I would say emotions are many things, but most importantly, it comes up for me in this moment that there are our greatest teachers in love and embracing and what it means to become whole.
Yeah. So what you were just saying, it all does make sense a lot to kind of get to know your emotions. But kind of from a more practical perspective, I feel like many men could say like, why should I bother to dig deeper and confront all this stuff? It's unpleasant. And, I have been taught to be tough, to be hard. As a man, you should not show your feelings. So is there kind of the whole why? Why is it worth it to go deep? And what are kind of the impacts if you don't do it? What can happen over the long term? And these kind of things, maybe. I feel like this could be important to point out.
Yes. So why it's important, especially, is because I would put the question to any brother who's in the practice of any kind of those thoughts that you're having, like, I was taught not to feel my emotions, I was taught not to feel. I just put the question is like, how are you feeling living that way? How does it feel to live that way? How does it feel to live with so much underneath the surface? How are your relationships? How is your life going? Are you happy? And this is the, so I would put it back on the individual to really discover that for themselves, like, what is true for you now? And what is true for you. And I can say in my journey, I can just speak for myself of my journey of coming into this understanding of emotional healing, and starting to experience everything that's lying underneath the surface, and starting to become honest with that there's a profound sense of finally being honest, finally being relaxed, finally being transparent, finally no longer having to carry the burden of hiding. So if we're not showing our emotions openly, that means there's another part of ourselves that is hard at work to keep them covered up, which is no easy task. And so we walk around not so much with the burden of the emotions on our shoulders, but with the burden of needing to spend the energy to cover them up, which looks like manipulating our behavior, manipulating the way we speak, or by having these like big releases that come up through drugs, through alcohol, through addiction, through porn, through binge eating, through kind of locker room talk, just all kinds of stuff that doesn't support or nourish us on the soul level at all. And so the importance of accessing our emotions is just to start living a life in full that's no longer fractured anymore, and also to understand what it means to come into coherence and integrity with ourselves, integrity with our heart, and to start to be honest with ourselves where we're actually at. And in that honesty and in that integrity, there comes an alignment within that unlocks a certain kind of unexplainable feeling of freedom, that unlocks a kind of unexplainable feeling of really being here in the present moment, a sense of no longer needing to run away. And in that sense of no longer needing to run away, we see that when we're no longer running away from ourselves, we're no longer running away from others, and others are no longer running away from us. We're beginning to cultivate what it means to stay in relationship with ourselves, which will translate to staying in relationship with others, staying in relationship harmoniously with our partners, with our families, with our communities, with this earth, and being connected to the beauty of this life, as emotions are a part of this life. And in denying one part of ourselves, we inadvertently deny and close to the rest of the beauty. It's not possible to just be closed to some aspects of life and then be open to the beautiful aspects of life. If we're closed to the darker aspects of life, we're also going to be closed to the lighter aspects of life. And we'll find ourselves as, again, kind of this monotonous, unfeeling robot. Life might be all right and might be neutral, but it's missing that deeper sense that we can intuitively feel in our heart that there's just something more here to be seen, to be felt. And when we miss out on that, the calling of our heart will get so loud at some point that we may have to take a deeper look. And when it comes to the time of our death, when we haven't contemplated death and we just constantly try to live, we strive to live, but we strive to live in a numbness. And then we come to death, and all of these things come to us on our deathbed. There comes the felt feeling of, did I actually ever live here? Was I even ever living? Or was I already dead? And when we come to that point of leaving this body, this can be a moment in our lives where whatever stone we left unturned, whatever thing that we pushed away, will come to the forefront in a very powerful way in that moment. And a great realization can come that, wow, it's okay to be myself, because here I am dying and all of a sudden I don't care anymore. So what happened there? I just missed an entire life. So it's this would be the importance of feeling emotions, getting to that point and being like, wow, what was this life about for me? What was it about? Did I embrace it fully? Did I feel it fully? And it's a contemplation for us.
Yeah, definitely. Mm. Yeah, you spoke in your course in the lecture of the king also about this, to the depth you can feel your pain is the depth you can feel love. And this
Hmm.
is really struck me a lot, kind of
Hmm.
this, what you're talking about, to be willing to feel also the stuff you don't want to feel. Otherwise, you won't be able to feel the beauty, maybe. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So as a famous Sufi poet and master, Rumi says, he says, we won't call you a lover in our town if you don't feel the pain. And so it's not even a matter of being judged on whether you're a lover or not, but it's just this way. It's just this way. The masters confirm this, and we can also experience it for ourselves. A heart can only be filled with love if it's broken. So otherwise there's nowhere for the love to get in, to come out. So it's
Mm.
really this paradox, the human paradox.
So what seems interesting to me is like, I think most men have experienced that when you're with a woman, they are just naturally kind of in the flow of emotions, they would just start to cry and whatever, just coming out. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, at least, I often stand there and I'm just have problems to feel, it's just not coming so easily. And yeah, kind of also about the why. Why is it often so difficult for men and takes so much practice? And for a woman, it's just more the natural flow in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. And I'd say, we can speak about how understanding the science of a feminine, in general, of a feminine physical body, how there's this association to the right hemisphere of the brain, and masculine body to the left hemisphere of the brain. Right brain being connected to emotions and intuition, and the left part of the brain being connected to logic. And so, we can explain it like that, but then the real why is still a big mystery. How are men and women in these bodies and this experience, and have a certain body, whether it's feminine or masculine, but then have a masculine or feminine psyche, or non-binary, or whatever. All the range of possibilities of human existence existing in all of us. But in general, it's just a feminine being is, there's somehow there's this connection to nature. Their bodies go through a cycle of birth and death every month, with the menstrual cycle that's dictated by the phases of the moon. So it's this mysterious, beautiful process of being so connected to feeling, of being so connected to the embodied sensation of physical feelings, and going through this process of the menstrual cycle. And so it's kind of women go through an initiation, every month, a deep initiation of really seeing their life force leaving their body, in the form of this blood, through this form of this purification. And that does something profound. And so it's not so much a matter of how or so, but why is just simply that women are just more naturally, the feminine being and psyche is just more connected to the elements in that way. And it doesn't mean that a masculine being can't be, but this brings us into the topic of, this leads to the topic of rites of passage, and how rites of passage for men has been missing for generations and generations. And so we are left now in a society with a population of uninitiated men. And what does that mean? It's in many tribal cultures, men were initiated in having to face their death. Because we don't end up facing it in a natural way. We have to sever this relationship to our mothers and learn how to self-resource in a way, and connect ourselves to the earth. So Many tribes would put men through initiations of really placing them in very difficult, trying situations to tickle the fear of death and to teach them to accept that death is coming. And through that acceptance and understanding of the sacredness of death, only then can the understanding and sacredness of life then arise, which is also parallel to the sacredness and connection to the emotions as you speak to. So why are men not feeling? Because we have no connection to life, because we have no connection to death. We live in this kind of material bubble where we have everything that we need, everything that we want, speaking about people that live in the West, more Western countries, in that way. And, of course, there's also, we have millions of people living underneath the poverty line in the United States, for example, where it's a, life or death situation. And everyone is kind of living in a fight or flight, a sort of nervous system response. And that's another big reason, especially why men and also many women cannot attach or feel their feelings either. There's also a big women's movement of what it means to reconnect to the menstrual cycle, to reconnect to your womb. There's this whole big movement around that as well. And with men, there's just this lack of connection is because there's a constant feeling of threat that is always there amongst men, especially in this primordial this primal understanding of being a predator. They say in anthropology, eyes in the front, we like to hunt. So this is a deep programming in men. And when we live in a culture where we have no brotherhood, every man that sees another man is constantly feeling a sense of subtle threat. We backstab, we cheat against each other. We have no circles where we come together and talk and really drop in with each other and learn to trust one another. So when a man sees another man that he doesn't know, we maybe aren't aware of it in our nervous system. But if you would pay close attention to yourself when you see a man that you don't know on the train or something like that, if you'd become aware, you would feel a sense of uneasiness being around another man, maybe on a very subtle level. So when we're in a sense of fight or flight all the time, we're not able to feel. We're not able to feel emotions because we're not resting in the parasympathetic. We're not relaxing and able to feel safe. So the purpose of what we do in men's work, for example, and why brotherhood is so important is because in brotherhood and in containers of sacred brotherhood, we create safety. And when we create the felt sense of safety, this is what allows emotions to rise. So if we put it in terms of polarity, when we create a container of safety, naturally emotions will want to come up because they feel safe to. There's a container for them to come into. But when we're in a lone wolf mentality, and we don't have any containers like that, and we spend most of our time alone and spend most of our time in shallow locker room talk kind of conversations with men, and this is our culture and the way we connect, there's no safety for those emotions to come up in the first place, especially not with women because of the inadequacy wound as well. The core wound of most men is that of inadequacy, like not feeling good enough, especially in the sexual domain, with all this programming of porn and modeling and marketing and all this shit that you see. This is what we're slammed with since an early age. So of course we grow up with a sense of not being connected to our emotions. And so, it's kind of what comes to me in this moment about why men are not as connected to their emotions. Some factors.
Yeah, that definitely, that's kind of relating to a few questions I wanted to ask about how the emotions are related to our nervous system, and in that point also our sexuality and intimacy in general. What about those stuck emotions? What is it doing with us in our bodies, and also relating with our partners, kind of, yeah. And maybe also what ways are there how to deal with it, or what deal is maybe not the right word, to heal that or to release that, to move forward towards a healthier way. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So answering to that question, what's kind of the, so from when we have stored emotions in the body and we have emotions that we don't feel safe to feel, a lot of times what happened to a lot of us as children growing up in Western society in this way is it's not okay to feel what I'm feeling. It's not okay to be myself. I'm punished for being myself, or I'm looked at as weird for being myself, or I'm bullied at school for being any little bit feminine or whatever, called gay, all these types of things. And we start to feel that it's not okay to be ourselves. We start to feel that it's not okay to be ourselves, and neither do we have positive role models to look up to of what it means to be an integral embodied man or an integral embodied woman. So we neither have these places to look up to. And so when we see our parents just also constantly fluctuating between states of closure and blowing up around emotions, either closing down on them or letting them blow up, we start to also cultivate these what we call belts of tension, like around different places of our body, to hold and to not feel emotion. And these places of tension that we create, there's parts of our psyche that come online to protect us from feeling certain emotions and essentially exile or push to the side certain emotions. And we do everything that we can to try to avoid feeling those things. And again, this sucks our energy when we are constantly in a fight or flight state, with cortisol pumping in the brain and throughout the body, and constantly creating sort of psychic contractions within our being that tighten different parts of our body and take a profound amount of energy, which decreases our capacity to cultivate proper immune responses or increases our immune responses. And we have autoimmune diseases also that manifest from this. So I'm not here to say and to point to any kind of science about this, but if you just feel into it, you can see how this is possible. And we see the kind of the state of health that our society is in. And we look at our entire medical system. Allopathic medicine is simply, first of all, it's a business. It's not actually a path of healing. It simply treats symptoms. And so what's underneath the symptoms of having a sore back? Is it really that I just overused it or sat in a wrong posture? Or is it because I needed love as a child but didn't get it and didn't have anywhere to express that in a safe way? And so I walk around carrying that all the time. I walk around tightening my back as a way to hold not feeling. And how does that manifest? In all different kinds of ways, even tightening of the organs and all the things like, so it's, if you look at the correlation of cancer patients to, and if you do a full psychological analysis on them, for example, multiple sclerosis, MS, if you look at that MS in women, they did studies on the women that I think forget what it is, because my partner had MS and she overcame it and she cured it. But I think it's 80% or 90%, something along those lines, very high percentage of all women that have MS have had some kind of sexual abuse in their childhood between a certain age, right? So an abuse happened, lots of feelings and emotions arose in the body. There was not a safe place to express them. They were suppressed down because this is our culture and our society. And then here you have so many women having MS. So that's just one direct correlation, regarding that topic and how it can affect the body.
This is kind of, when you're talking about trauma, this is actually what it is, probably the stored, stuck energy in the body, right? Actually, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the trauma is not actually what happens to us, but it's how we react from as a result of what happened to us. And so when we react, when we say trauma is stored in the body, it's not so much that about the event, but it's about how we blocked the natural expression of the body that needed to happen during that event. So like if we look at animals in the wild, we look at gazelles and things like this, and this is really thoroughly explained in a very beautiful book by a master of trauma, Peter A. Levine, in his book Waking the Tiger. You know, he speaks about how gazelles, you know, after they get chased by a cheetah or something like this and their life is threatened. So again, the sense of threat, right? If they escape the cheetah, they'll lay down and they shake and they sound for as long as it needs to until it's cleared. And then once it's cleared, it's almost as if the chase and their life was never threatened in the first place. They're just back to regulated, back to neutral. It's like never happened. In terms of a memory that keeps me always in a state of being scared or anxious or nervous or stressed, anytime a little something reminds me of that experience when I didn't have the opportunity to express what my body needed to in that moment after it happened. The event happens. There's a feeling of an emotion arising. There's a need for something to happen, a kind of expression. It's not safe to feel that. And so it's actually in the post part of that process of where it's not safe to feel that the trauma actually happens. So the trauma is not so much about what happens, but it's about the feeling of being unsafe to express what it brought up is where what we call the trauma happens. Yeah. And when we're brought up in a culture where there's no importance given to emotions, we have psychology, which works at the level of the mind only. And then we have allopathic medicine, which works at the level of the symptoms. So what about the root cause? Our whole culture is based on these models. So when we have nowhere to safely feel and express, we're constantly contracted and holding all these things. So yeah, it's like this.
Yeah. There's a long way to go.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, just I have one more topic, so to speak, which is sexuality, because I speak for myself. Not being able to access my emotions so good is also, yeah, it's really hard to connect deeply sexually also then as well. And also about this topic of premature ejaculation, I think like many men do have that issue, and it's, for me at least, it's, you know, it's constantly there. When you would meet a woman, there's the subtle feeling, or I won't be able to satisfy her, you know, and this I feel like this is really, really painful, and also for your self-worth, and not to speak of making your partner happy in the relationship, you know. So yeah, I'd love if you could speak to that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, yeah, there's a couple different angles on that, but you know, what I would start answering that question with around this disconnection from feeling. So we have this understanding of men that are disconnected from the emotions and disconnected from feeling. We're disconnected from the earth, hence why we're destroying it, you know. So when there's this disconnection from energy from the feminine overall, which is the sexual energy, we're disconnected from our emotions. Just like we said, when I'm closed to one thing, I'm closed to another. So if I'm closed to my emotions and I'm closed to my feelings, and also when I start to feel emotions, if my only training is to constantly just go for the thing that allows me to feel a sense of freedom for a brief moment, this instant pleasure, instant gratification, which is what our society is completely all about and what has taught us to do. You know, if you're tired, drink a Monster or a Red Bull or a Coca-Cola instead of just feeling and being tired. You know, we have something to fix everything. It's like we have Adderall or whatever for kids that have ADD, because what happens when you have a traumatic childhood? What is the trauma response? Is to check out. So it's to make the mind race from one thing to the next. So I, you know, personally, you know, just tying in something here is like, I don't personally believe that ADD actually exists. It's not a real disease. It's just a trauma response that's learned from age to check out. You're absorbing the stress from your parents. And the only way that you know how to check out without training is to constantly make your mind race from one topic to the next. Similar to what happens to us when we're in when we're with the sexual energy. We don't recognize it as sacred. We don't recognize it as a tool to use for healing and to use for awakening to the essence of who we are, when we're only taught through porn to just use it as a way for instant gratification and as a way to boost our egos, as opposed to drop into real, true, and intimate connection. When we're not able to control that sexual energy and we're identified with the ego, with how long we can hold the sexual energy, of course, nervousness will arise and tension will be created in the body, especially in the prostate. And if your prostate is tense and your balls are tense and your whole pelvic floor is tense and contracted, what's it going to do? It's going to squeeze the semen right out of you, So this is where the premature ejaculation comes from. It comes from this core wound, again, of inadequacy in men. I'm not good enough. And so when I'm walking around the world believing that I'm not good enough, I'm constantly under the pressure of myself to perform. And when I'm under the pressure of myself to perform, again, I'm in fight or flight because I'm in a state of threat. And so when I'm in a state of threat, there's all this tension and cortisol flooding into my body, and I'm not able to relax. And therefore, if I'm not able to relax and hold a relaxed structure in my body, the feminine will not flow. The feminine will eject from me. Yeah, because it can't be near me, because I can't hold it. Holding your semen is the same as holding your partner or holding a person in their emotions, right? A big emotion arises in a friend, and what do? You want to eject. You want to ejaculate from the situation because you don't know how to hold, you don't know how to breathe, you don't know how to center, you don't know how to be with your core and truly be in the present moment with another person. It's the same with the sexual energy. When she arises, what we do is we practice breathing. We sit upright. We cultivate integrity of the structure of the body. We recognize her as sacred. We honor her. We recognize that it's not about using her for egotic purposes to prove ourselves. It's not about that. It's a sacred energy. It's the sacred flow of life flowing through our body. So this is one piece about that. And another piece about it is understanding how the masculine genitals are outside of the body. So this is like when I first learned this and realized this was a massive light bulb for me. Our most precious, most sensitive part of our body is outside. Anybody can slap it, grab it, kick it, squeeze it, whatever. A woman's genitals are on the inside of her body. Her ovaries, all of her motion are protected by her body, and yet she's a much more softer presence psychologically and nervous system wise, and also physically less strong naturally. Men are more strong. So it's like the yin yang symbol. It's like, right, we have this potential to have these really strong bodies, but then there's nothing we can do about our genitals being out in the open for anybody to grab or to squeeze or to punch or to kick or whatever. And psychologically, we don't really recognize this. Like most men will be like, oh yeah, wow, my genitals are on the outside of my body. Like it's the first time when somebody told me that, and recognize that, well, it's the same as my emotions. It's like our genitals are like our emotions. They're out. Everybody can see when we're not feeling upset, but they're so sensitive. And then because we've never learned to embrace our genitals and embrace our cocks, and recognize them as sacred and beautiful, same as our emotions, we constantly try to protect. We pack it with shame, with guilt for its feelings. We don't honor it, all these things. And we constantly pack this shame and guilt around it, which leaves no room for the sexual energy to move anywhere else but be sneezed out the tip. So this is why the correlation to accessing our emotions and becoming more emotionally intelligent and learning how to work, when we start doing the inner work of allowing these emotions to release, naturally we will start to find ourselves more confident and relaxed in the sexual space, because these two correlate. They're all connected. And we can do that work in the sexual space when we have a conscious partner. It's a very big blessing to have a conscious partner where we can be vulnerable. Yeah, where we can open, where we can speak to and say, wow, this sexual moment feels very edgy for me, or speak about, what it means to practice semen retention, to relax myself when I get close to ejaculation and stop using ejaculation as a way to sneeze out and to have a brief momentary moment of freedom at the cost of my energy for the next 21 days, which is how long it takes you to rebuild the energy that you lose from one ejaculation. So it's yeah, there's a whole course right there, a workshop in that alone. So let's pause it there. But if you have any other questions you want to clarify about something I spoke to or anything, they're happy to.
This is
to
really, really valuable. I feel like putting a whole new perspective on that, like this emotions and being able to hold the feminine. Yeah, you will hear that nowhere, this is, yeah, it's really beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I would round it up with, like, maybe you could share some of the practices you're doing when you're working with men, and maybe also some tips what men at home could do in general to get more access to their emotions, feeling more connected, maybe just some tips so they could get a sense, a feeling of what this could look like. Yeah.
Yes. So what I say to all my clients and all my brothers, if you're gonna, there's a basis for everything. There's a basis for all of this work. And it's two things. You need to cultivate the chi and the energy of your body, the prana, the life force, whatever it is, to learn how to cultivate that, to learn how to save it, to learn how to amplify it. And so that looks like doing any kind of breath and movement practice, yoga, qigong, Wim Hof breathing, deep breathing, pranayama, anything that amplifies the energy in your body, semen retention. You need to have energy. If you don't have energy, it doesn't matter. Like you then, even if you just want to drink your beers and have your parties, what do you need for that? You need energy, so it doesn't matter, even if you're whatever, and I'm not saying drinking beers and parties are wrong or anything like that. It's just to amplify the understanding of you need to cultivate energy in the body. That is a key to whatever it is that you want to do. I'm not here to tell you what to do as a man, but it's whatever you want to do, you need energy in the body. And you need to cultivate that and take care of the energy of the body. So taking care of the physical body, which is the great feminine in itself, the manifest. The second thing is to learn how to deepen in presence, to deepen in the consciousness that you are. A man's deepest place of resting is resting in consciousness as consciousness itself. That is the masculine principle of life, is consciousness. When we look at it from a tantric perspective, the feminine is energy, the masculine is consciousness. So a man, you will find deep, deep nourishment and rest by meditation, by resting in your core. So having some kind of meditation practice every day where you have no demand, no phone on, no nothing to look at, nothing to do. 20 minutes, you don't even have to do a formal meditation practice. Just do nothing for 20 minutes. Just sit there, look at the wall, be in the empty box. Just give yourself that space and that rest to allow the present moment to give you and teach you whatever it is longing to give you and teach you. Take that time to rest without anything. So those are the two recommendations, like just basic 101 I'd give to any man. And how do you cultivate those things? Daily practice. If you don't have a daily practice, don't expect any kind of transformation to happen in your life from any other modality. You're seeing a therapist once a week, great. I'm here to tell you that that's probably not going to do anything if you're not practicing daily. If you're not, one, cultivating energy in the body, and two, learning what it means to rest in presence as presence itself. These are two necessary components to a healthy man, and it requires daily practice. So like as you experience in the embodied King Felix, that's why we have a daily practice for 3 months long. Every brother is practicing every single day, and there you start to see the transformation in these men. And so many men say, wow, this course, let alone all the things in it, is just worth it for the practice alone, the practice container, how calm, how centered I feel, how able I am to access my emotions, how much better I'm showing up with my partner just through cultivating energy and resting in consciousness. So these are the two components that I would say are the most important for any man. If you take anything away from this, these two things, daily practice.
Yeah. Speaking of this, I'd love if you would like to share about your work what are your offerings, and maybe a little bit of what you're doing there, just what you're saying about the course. I just want to add, like you were also saying, the accountability is one of the main things, because for me it's like I did do yoga and meditation, but there having this accountability, you have to like post, you have done it, it's completely different, you know. You won't miss anything because you know I have to post it, and yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, on top of daily practice, if you said, okay, what's the basics that you could give a man, I would say daily practice. If I would go one more step on, I'd say brotherhood and community. This is super important in order to stay accountable for your daily practices. So, and then we can go even more and more up the ladder of the different things that are needed to really embody this man in full that our hearts are calling for and that our communities are demanding. But my offerings include the following. Right now I have an online course called The Embodied King. That's a 3-month course that's about healthy masculine embodiment, trauma release, inner child work, masculine, feminine polarity and relating, shadow work, and spiritual depth, and is like a complete path to personal development and spiritual awakening, specifically for men as I see it. It's a very basic structure and frame for what are all the areas of my being that I need to be focused on simultaneously in order to become this man in full, in order to bring the deepest purpose of my heart through in a powerful and heartfelt way that inspires others, and is an expression of breaking the generational chains of wounds that have existed in my family. So this is a course that explains and gives the path of how to do that with a committed brotherhood that can help you truly make that change and manifest that change that you'd like to see in other men. So I have a 3-month course. I also give in-person men's retreats. In the summertime, I'm in Europe. I have a staple retreat called the Awaken Masculine Intensive. You were at that, Felix. And so you know what that space is about. It's a deep space of transformation, a healing and awakening for men. It's definitely different from the Embodied King containerhood. It's less of a course. It's not so much of a course. It's more of a full-bodied experience. So I'd say it's about 20% teaching and about 80% embodied practice, whereas the Embodied King, I'd say, is around 50-50, more like 50% sort of talking and teaching and 50% embodied practice and brotherhood, because it's more of a course in that way than it is a fully embodied experience. So both of these are great. So I have those going on. I also coach men one-to-one on the same topics, complete path, working with the shadow, working with the body, working with the trauma, working with spirit. Same thing I do with couples. I work with couples one-to-one on how to both heal and awaken through relationship, through sacred intimacy practice, through relationship therapy, and through a combination of the tantric perspective of relationship, and combining these worlds of therapy and spirit together. So that's what I work on with couples. I work with couples one-to-one, and I do retreats with my partner, Valentina. We do these retreats together. We have one coming up here next week here in Mazunte in Mexico, 4-day retreat called True Intimacy is our kind of staple retreat. So we do those here in Mexico and Central America. And then in the summertime, we will be on a teaching tour in Europe, also giving our retreats there. And people can stay in touch with me on Instagram. It's at Ian Wilkes. So Ian_Wilkes. And my website is www.ianwilkes.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. And I send out free meditations and things like that from time to time, and also special offers for my courses and retreats there as well. So if you want, you can sign up for my newsletter. Stay in touch that way.
Great, Ian. Yeah, and I want to say I can really recommend your course and the retreat. Yeah, I mean, the retreat was what brought me to your course. And I feel like maybe I wouldn't do this Congress now if I wouldn't have been through your course also. It kind of pushed me in a way to just go there and do it and see what's coming out of it. But this, just maybe the confidence, or I feel like some blocks have been removed just to do things, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for that. And yeah, thanks so much for being here today. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, Felix. I love that. And that's exactly what this work is all about, you know, if I know that the core of my being, like we did in the meditation, is love, you know, what is it that's keeping me? What are those barriers? What are those blocks that are holding me from that deepest expression and truth of my heart? And, you know, you're just a perfect example of what it looks like to go through that work, and now to hold a beautiful space like this men's conference is such a beautiful expression of that beauty of the heart and of that fearlessness and of that leadership that we're speaking about and cultivating so much in these containers. So thank you so much for leaning into your work in that way, brother, and deeply honoring you and celebrating you in this moment, brother, for starting this. You inspire me, brother.
Oh, thanks so much,
Yeah.
Ian. Yeah. Mm. Thanks a
Yes,
lot.
brother. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.